Hey everybody, Garrett, that's Skewed and Reviewed, and we are back with our weekly Skewedcast, and I am joined always with Michael and Justin, and we are going to be discussing all sorts of new pop culture things. You can check us out online at sknr.net. You can also catch my weekly segment on BJ Shea's Geek Nation on KSW FM. You can either go to ksw.com and follow the cues into BJ Geek Nation, or simply go to our page at sknr.net, and I post the segment every Friday. And also, we have our quarterly magazine. We're getting ready to do the March/April issue. It usually comes out in March, but we may hold it to the first couple days of April because we're going to include our Wondercon coverage. And we'll have more on that soon. And of course, finally, you can catch us in the 8 newspapers in the Pinal Central network of papers. Just go to pinalcentral.com, keyword skewed. Michael's review for Thulu Tactics, or Octon Thulu Tactics, is up there. It was just posted last week, so we have a lot of stuff. So this week, movies, games, and more. And let's start, and conventions, of course. So let's start off with this little fella here. This is brand new from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. This is the complete first season of Krpyton, Blu-ray, and digital. So, of course, this is the prequel series about Superman's ancestors 200 years before the classic Superman tale. It's been a very popular show on Sci-Fi, and it includes 3 featurettes, bringing home the world of life, a Lost Kingdom, and many other things, deleted scenes, and gag reel. One of the great things about it, other than the fantastic picture and sound quality that I absolutely love that Warner Brothers does, is they include the Comic-Con panels and for their superhero shows. So this one here has the 2017 Comic-Con panel where they made their debut at the show. I was actually in the back of the hall when they recorded that because I was in between interviews, so was downstairs in the room watching the panels pop up, do the interviews, come back down, so on and so forth. Always a lot of stuff going on, as you know from our coverage. So that's a lot of fun. You got to see the cast come out, and they talked about it. They answered questions from the audience about what they could expect. We got some teaser artwork and some sizzle reels, so a lot of great stuff. You want to check that out. Another thing I wanted to mention is gaming-wise. Now, played a new PSVR game the other day, and I am absolutely enjoying it. So much so that my wife, who generally has not done a lot of PSVR since we did the pre-launch stuff at PAX Prime at the time. It's PAX West now, because she doesn't like all the motion. She gets very dizzy, but we're finding that there are certain games that work just fine for her, and Dick Wilde was one of them. And this is a very quirky and enjoyable game where you can play either by yourself or with people as you take 2 weapons like this, guns akimbo, and you go down on your raft through a series of creeks and rivers and areas covered by debris, dangerous mutants, and more. And your job is to basically shoot all the debris before it damages your raft, shoot the mutants before they can damage you, collect cash and power-ups along the way, which you use to upgrade your weaponry as well as your health. And you can go from pistols to Uzis, to shotguns, and many other things. Now, one of the great things about it is you do not have to reload with that click off the screen. You just keep firing. Like the best classic Westerns, your bullets never run out. The only difference is you'll learn that with your Uzis, they are not as accurate as some weapons, so it's kind of a spray and pray mentality. And when you're trying to take out precision incoming objects, there you go. So shotgun works, but they don't fire as fast. You'll find the one that works for you or the combination. I do highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and that's Dick Wilde too. Okay, guys, so we have some superhero news to start off with. First off, we have Captain Marvel opening this week. We'll have our review up, I believe, Tuesday when the embargo lifts, or I will have the review up when the embargo lifts. And we've got some news before I get to the bigger news about what Marvel's plans are at an upcoming convention. We have some news today that the New Mutants may not get the theatrical route and may end up on the Disney Plus streaming service. And this comes right around the time that we're hearing that the Disney-Fox merger may be all wrapped up within the next 2 weeks. So why don't we start with Michael? Why don't you start off? Tell us a little bit about the New Mutants are and what's going on and why we've had the delays, and then Justin will get you your feedback on that.
Yeah, so the New Mutants has been kind of kicked around for a while now. Essentially, it's a new take on X-Men franchise to some extent, featuring a lot of the lesser known mutants that kind of follow the New Mutant storyline. Didn't have a huge A-listing cast, from what we understand, is they ran into quite a bit of issues with, getting the initial release done, getting they had some issues with reshoots potentially, that sort of thing. So what it looks like they're going to do now potentially is, instead of releasing it to potentially mixed reviews and maybe some lackluster reviews from the Marvel Cinematic Universe position in the theaters, going more towards the Disney Plus release instead. Personally, I think that's probably a good opportunity for them to sell the Disney Plus for those who are interested in the New Mutants storyline and that sort of stuff. It kind of takes some of the pressure off if it has a potentially it just doesn't come across as the quality of other Marvel genres that are out there and other Marvel releases. And generally speaking, just kind of takes some of that pressure off. I think in general it gives it I think it's a good move on Disney's part if it does go to Disney Plus for those reasons. I mean, we're going to get to see some potential, new movies that aren't going to be released in theaters but are going to be exclusive to Disney Plus subscribers, so it draws those folks in. It'll give that opportunity to see how that particular how that flows. How do people react to the characters? How do people react to the actors? How do people react to the storyline? Maybe paving the way for a more complete cinematic release later. I think it also will kind of help with some of the fatigue I think that a lot of people are feeling from the Marvel universe and superhero movies in general. I think we've been kind of going nonstop now for a while. I know there's a lot of excitement for Captain Marvel and Endgame coming up, obviously. But I think we're at a point now where we've been seeing so many of these that I think fatigue is going to be a factor for some of the lesser known franchises, some of the lesser known branding. And I think some of the movies would absolutely suffer for that reason alone. So if they do go the Disney Plus route, I think it's probably a good decision for Marvel and Disney in general.
Okay, so Justin, your take on this, and let's expand it a little bit. There has been no secret that X-Men Dark Phoenix, which recently had a new trailer and poster, has had extensive reshoots on at least two, I think possibly three occasions. It's had its release date changed multiple times. Why are they having so much trouble getting this? And what is even funnier is it seems like they're putting all their effort into trying to salvage X-Men Dark Phoenix, and New Mutants has been left languishing.
Yeah, it is very strange just because, if you go back and kind of go over the history of this franchise, we had X-Men 3, which definitely was not well received at all. That was followed by X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was just frankly abysmal. It was not a good movie at all. And so Fox at the time, they sort of did like a soft reboot. They decided to kind of go back to basics and reinvent the franchise a little bit, and they released First Class. And to this day, X-Men First Class is one of my favorite X-Men movies. It's even among my favorite superhero movies. It's absolutely excellent, and they did a really good job rebooting that franchise. And they also followed up with an equally excellent Days of Future Past, and obviously Deadpool and Logan, and even the Wolverine. That whole slew of movies that they made around that time were all absolutely excellent. So it's very confusing as to why such high quality movies were immediately followed up with Apocalypse, which was, I'll go ahead and say, yeah, I was not a fan of Apocalypse, especially, given how good Days of Future Past was and how good First Class was. Great cast. And you would think that the producers behind these projects were, they had the right idea of where they wanted to go, and they sort of fumbled with Apocalypse, and now we're kind of where we're at now with Dark Phoenix following up Apocalypse, and I'm sort of apprehensively interested in Dark Phoenix. I haven't been wowed by the trailers yet, and I think a lot of people sort of feel the same way. And it really would be a major shame if this film doesn't do well and if it's not good, because this would be the second time they've tried to adapt this beloved story arc from the X-Men comics and not done well. This story arc definitely has a ton of potential. So I'm really not sure what it is that that ended up leading Fox to this point in time, because they had a lot of success with like I said, First Class, Days of Future Past, Logan, The Wolverine, Deadpool 2. They had like a lot of success, and now we're kind of where we're at, where Fox has been purchased by a different company, and all of their projects are sort of like it's scary. Like you look at what they've been working on, and I'm a little concerned with just about everything. That being said, the New Mutants, it actually looked pretty interesting to me. I mean, as far as I don't know if it's the caliber to release in theaters. I sort of agree that I think that releasing it on the Disney streaming platform is a good idea, because as we've said in the past, or one of the points I've been making in the past, this streaming service is going to need quite a bit of content to sort of justify it. And this is the kind of movie that would, be high quality enough that it's going to garner a lot of attention, but maybe not high quality enough that it's going to be a huge box office hit. So releasing it on the streaming service, I think, is a pretty decent idea. It's got kind of a niche to it, because it's sort of being billed as an X-Men horror movie. And, if they nail that, that sort of niche, I think it really could be a pretty good movie. I just don't know if it's going to be of the caliber that's going to, wow people enough that it's going to make, gangbusters at the box office. So I do think it would be a smart move to release it on the streaming service, and it's going to end up making the streaming service better and attract more people to it.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about it, is there's going to be so much coming up in the next few weeks, few days. And that kind of leads to our next segment, is that on Friday, Marvel was very kind enough to send over their plans for Wondercon, which is taking place at the end of the month. Genevieve and I will be there covering. And of course, this is still to be seen, but Michael will be covering CinemaCon like a week after that. And we have someone in San Antonio that will be going up to Austin and covering South by Southwest next week. Now, we don't know what their plans are for that, but the point is we're getting to the movie convention time of year. Now, this is what we can tell you that will be at WonderCon. Marvel has revealed that Cloak and Dagger will be doing a panel on Friday, March 29th. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will be doing something. The season 6 premiere is going to be on March 30th. Let's see. Marvel Animation world premiere of Marvel Rising Heart of Iron will be taking place on Sunday the 31st. And of course, there's also going to be a Legion panel, which is based on the popular series that is on the FX network. So why don't we start with you, Justin? Are you surprised that Marvel is coming out with such a strong presence to open things off, when it was basically assumed that they might hold their cards back until, at the very least, San Diego Comic-Con, or more likely the D23 Expo?
No, I think, it sort of makes sense. As we've talked about in the past, it's all about timing. And I think they probably have enough content at for D23 that you don't want to load too much up at one of these conventions, because then the news of one of the Marvel movies could easily overshadow the news of some of these very high quality television shows. So I think it's a smart move to kind of space this out, and maybe reveal a little bit for these particular projects, and then sort of save the spotlight for some of their other projects at other events.
And Michael, your take on this, please.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they kind of do need to space it out, because if we look at all this stuff, they'll just be coming off of Captain Marvel, Endgame, and then we're talking about the stuff that's going to be going on Disney Plus. So I think this will give them an opportunity to kind of showcase their television series that are still on network television, not necessarily related to the Disney streaming service, not related to stuff coming out in theaters. And it kind of is a good opportunity for them to kind of say, hey, we still have this ongoing presence, right? The Gifted is a show I watch regularly, which I really enjoy. I really like the take on the X-Men that they did with The Gifted. Obviously, Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., there was a time when we thought that might fold. It kind of went through a couple of seasons where it was kind of, how is that going to survive? Sounds like they're back to backing that and really putting a lot of effort into it. Again, I've always been a real big fan of the show, so it's good to see that they're still driving that television content, and they're not just saying this is what's going to be on our streaming service, this is what's coming out in theaters, but they're also entertaining the crowd and those who aren't going to have opportunities to have the streaming service to say that we're still going to be working on these television series that are on network television for folks to be able to enjoy without paying a premium for. So I agree. I think it's a good opportunity for them to kind of showcase what is out there for the general public, because they're going to have a lot, and then to kind of see where we're at. I don't think they're going to announce much of anything about what's going to be showing from a movie perspective until after we get past Captain Marvel, after we get past Endgame. And I think if they were to kind of show their hand with what other movie type franchises they might have coming out at D23, that it could potentially spoil some of that. So I'm not going to say that they're not going to have some movie type news coming out of D23, but they're certainly not going to tip that hand this early in the year. So it's good to see that they're kind of showcasing their television series right now.
I think it's definitely a very interesting and very smart move, because traditionally, in my experience with WonderCon, is that there is a big emphasis on television. And while there are some movies there, it's not as focused on movies as, say, something like CinemaCon and San Diego Comic-Con are. It's not, you do get plenty of reveals there, but see, again, I remember a couple of years ago, there was a big focus on shows that were just getting ready to debut in the next couple of weeks. It was like a good platform to say, here's the cast, here's the shows, this is coming out in a couple of weeks, let's get excited for it and launch this thing successfully. Last year, we saw a bigger push, I think, on some, like AMC was very active with, hey, we've got The Terror coming, and here's the cast from Fear the Walking Dead, and here's Into the Badlands. And, they continue to expand on things. And I think what you're seeing with Disney is exactly what you guys said. These are the shows that are on right now. You know about these. Here are a few things that are coming. Let's get excited. Let's get behind these. This is not the time to drop news about the upcoming movies. There are times for that. People will be focused at San Diego Comic-Con and D23. D23, in addition to being a celebration of all things Disney, D23 Expo, is a look at what is coming in many cases. This is when they bring out the stars from Star Wars, from Marvel, from their animation, from Pixar, and say, this is what we've got for you coming in the next couple of years. This is when we make the announcements. So they're essentially saying, we've got some great stuff. We're excited about it. You may know about these, you may not know about these, but we're going to show you a little more. And in many ways, I think this is great because it gets people excited on some of the stuff that maybe doesn't get as much attention as some of the other properties does, but it sets the groundwork to say, these are here, we're not forgetting about them. And while you wait for CinemaCon, while you wait for San Diego Comic-Con and D23 for the big stuff, here's some great stuff to keep you tied over in addition to the movies we have coming. And I think it's just a wonderful thing. And I'm glad to see that they were there with such a variety of shows, and I'm really excited to see what they have to tell us. So let's talk about another interesting bit of news convention-wise, and that is with Star Wars Celebration coming up soon in Chicago, where we all expect to see the trailer for Episode 9, or at least get a title. I think we all expect to possibly see the first footage from The Mandalorian, maybe get some news on the rumored third live-action series, maybe some new footage from the upcoming Clone War episodes. Who knows? But we also know that apparently the new video game from Respawn, Jedi Fallen Order, is going to make its debut at Star Wars Celebration, so we can look to get some information, hopefully trailers, release dates, and game information. And I would guess this will probably be followed up by EA Play at E3. So, Justin, why don't you start us off? What are you expecting? And go from there.
Yeah, so what I'm expecting, I'm honestly not 100% sure what to expect from this, because Respawn Entertainment, obviously known for Titanfall, and before that, the older Call of Duty games, because this particular studio was created by ex-developers from Infinity Ward. And so they're really well known for the first person, very tight combat controls, very fast paced movement. And so now that they're making a Jedi game, obviously we can expect quite a bit of lightsaber combat, and obviously force powers. I can say what I'm hoping for. And what I'm hoping for is, if not a direct relation, at least like a spiritual successor to the Dark Forces series. Mm-hmm. The Dark Forces series, for those who don't know, very old classic Star Wars series. It was a blend of the first two were entirely first person, but their sequels, Jedi Knight and Jedi Academy, had a blend of first person combat with when you were using guns, and then when you switched to your lightsaber, it would go into third person. And those games were absolutely incredible. Probably my favorite Star Wars games that have been made yet. A huge place in my heart for in my past. So absolutely beloved series from me. And they were well known for kind of a similar niche where it was a very tight combat controls, very fast paced. In fact, it had a pretty large online community. And they really nailed lightsaber combat really well. So I'm hoping they draw at least some inspiration from that series for this game. And it sort of makes sense given their track record with Call of Duty and Titanfall and Titanfall 2. I think that there's a good chance that they could take some inspiration from the Dark Forces series. I don't really expect to have this game be directly related. But it would be nice, maybe this would be a good opportunity for them to reintroduce Kyle Katarn, maybe kind of imagine some of the stories from the Dark Forces series. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for, and hopefully we can at least get some very nice lightsaber combat, maybe some first-person shooting as well. It would be great.
Michael, your take, please.
Yeah. So, fun fact about Dark Forces: it was one of the, if not the very first-person shooter to be able to look up and down. So
that's true.
With a lot of Doom clones coming out at the time, Doom 1 and Doom 2, it's hard for people to imagine that you didn't actually look up or down in those games, right? Nope. So me being the age that I am and picking up Dark Forces at Price Club at the time, which is now Costco, that was one of the revolutionary things. And I 100% agree that what I hope for is something that's along the lines of Jedi Knight 2, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, Star Wars first-person shooter games ever made. Respawn has been pretty surprising lately, right? Titanfall 2, I think, had a much more involved single-player experience than a lot of people expected. They kind of suffered from the poor timing on the release of Titanfall 2, but it was one of the last games that I actually think had a really good first-person shooter solo experience, kind of something that had been missing in some, other, shooter games. It was a lot less, multiplayer combat focus and had a single-player experience worth playing into. To kind of dovetail off of their rather exceptional Titanfall 2, they released what was a surprise is Apex Legends, which has pretty much taken the world by storm, I think, at this point. It's one that actually dethroned Fortnite for a while, which is surprising. It's kind of become the darling of much of my Twitch streamer friends, those who even weren't really big into that kind of genre, the whole PUBG experience, that whole online experience, have pretty much adopted Apex Legends as one of their go-to games now, some of which have actually leveled out their characters far quicker than they did anything else. So the fact that they've had two fairly significant, well-done releases gives me a lot of excitement for what Jedi Fallen Order could be. And to kind of tie into what Justin was saying, I would love for them to expand on Kyle Katarn, actually make him something outside of a legend and actually make him canon. Again, that would be phenomenal and would open up a lot of opportunities for an interesting character that would kind of tie into, potentially a new movie series, or going back to Disney streaming, another Disney streaming, character for the series. I think that would be fantastic. will they use that or will they utilize a new character? I don't know, but I would love for that to be kind of an opportunity to either make him a playable character or introduce him back into Star Wars canon and lore. So all in all, based on what they've done in the past 3 years or so with Respawn, I really hope that they kind of take a chapter from Titanfall 2 with some really tight single-player, solo-player experience, but also some fun, exciting multiplayer combat, something that the multiplayer people can get into, kind of how they did with Titanfall 2's multiplayer component or Apex Legends, and really give something that Star Wars fans can cheer about, something that we've been kind of missing for a while. I know Battlefront 2, a lot of folks really were hoping that it was going to be something that EA would deliver on. I know it came back with its own controversy. So if Respawn can kind of turn that tide around, maybe get Star Wars fans excited about games again, give them something to really enjoy, it's something that I'm really hoping for. So being cautiously optimistic, but that's kind of my take on what that game is going to bring to the Star Wars fans in general.
Yeah, and let's not put too fine a point on it. We've discussed how EA Star Wars Battlefront 2 had its issues. I don't think they can afford a bad rollout of this Star Wars game, especially when the call it what you will, the visceral and then Star Wars game got canceled, and then the attempt to reboot it got canceled. Then we hear reports that smaller projects are going to be following, essentially 2 smaller games. They need a hit, and they need one badly. And I think they've definitely got the right showcase for it. You've got a time before E3 when you're not going to be having to face a lot of competition. You're going to have you're going to have a rabid crowd of Star Wars fans. They have shown off EA Star Wars Battlefront and other games at these events, but this is it. This is the time to come out, and I think you got to wow them at this point. You got to come out with something that they're really going to be excited over. Respawn has got a phenomenal track record, and I'm very curious to see what they come up with. So that will be really good. So as I mentioned the other day, earlier in the show, we have South by Southwest going on in Austin next weekend, and I believe it goes into the weekend after. That's a celebration of all kinds of arts and stuff, movies, games, music, so on and so forth. We have people there. We're going to have the debut of Pet Cemetery, the latest reboot of the classic Stephen King tale, and we have a few other things to be reporting, so please make sure to stay tuned in for that. And guys, I think that's going to do it. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that we covered this week?
Nope, that should cover it.
Nope, that's good for me.
All right, well, that's going to do it, folks. Next week, we will have a lot more for you. Until then, have a fantastic week. Stay safe and take care.